Hey everybody, thanks for supporting the channel. This video will be a continuation of the series in which we analyze the top 25 recruits in this year's recruiting cycle. This specific video will cover numbers 16 through 20. So let's get into it. Coming in at number 20 is Jaquelin Roy, an LSU defensive tackle. Roy is 6'4", 289 pounds, and is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Looking at Roy's film, the two things that stand out most to me are his motor and his athleticism for a defensive tackle. In the modern era of college football, defensive tackle prospects that are also extremely athletic and can move around the defensive line are extremely valuable. Jaquelin Roy is that kind of prospect. Roy competed against some of the top interior linemen in this year's recruiting cycle and did fairly well in most of the camps that he attended. After losing the majority of their defense to the NFL draft, Bo Pelini will likely want to play Roy in not as much of a situational kind of defensive tackle, but as an every down defensive tackle. Obviously, he's going to have players over him in the depth chart, but Roy has a work ethic that I really think that he could make his starting lineup at least by his sophomore year. I don't think it would be a horrible mistake to move him to defensive end, given his height and weight and just his skill set as a defensive lineman. But if he is going to play defensive tackle, I would definitely advise that he adds some mass. My comparison for Jaquelin Roy is former LSU defensive tackle Rashard Lawrence. After looking at Lawrence play at LSU for multiple years, the one thing that stands out in his film is his power and his motor. Jaquelin Roy and all the snaps that he took in camps and in high school, you see elements of Rashard Lawrence in every single rep this guy takes. His ability to play with violent hands and get to the quarterback on a consistent basis made him an LSU legend with his time in Tigers. At number 19 on the list is Auburn running back Tank Bigsby. Tank is the number one running back in the SEC recruiting cycle. He is 6 feet tall, 210 pounds. Tank is probably my favorite player in this recruiting class, mainly because I really like his name. His name is Tank. That's pretty cool. Tank is rated as the number 39 recruit in 247 Sports Composite, but the only thing really keeping him from being a 5-star running back is that in high school he played in a lower classification that really just kept most of the scouts from ranking him as a 5-star. For those who watched the All-American Bowl where high school recruits faced off against one another, Tank Bigsby competed in that. He competed against some of the best, and he played very well. I think that he should be able to be an elite running back at the next level, especially in Auburn's rotation. Tank is a fun running back to watch because he really has everything that you could want out of a running back. He's explosive from the second he touches the ball. He's a good one-cut running back. He plays with a high motor. And for a running back, he's relatively tall. He's the second biggest running back that I will cover in this thing, only behind Kendall Milton. Auburn loses the majority of their offensive line following the past season. But if they can recruit and get a good offensive line there, with Bo Nix playing quarterback, Tank Bigsby could be incredibly successful at Auburn. My player comparison for Tank Bigsby, there's plenty of running backs that I could have compared him to, but the one I am going to put is a player that I've already mentioned, Kerryon Johnson, an Auburn running back. Similar to Tank Bigsby, he had a skill set in which he could do anything that the coaches wanted of him. Especially for Auburn's offense, it's important to be able to catch out of the backfield. Kerryon can do that, and Tank can do that very well. Tank has shown his catching ability in reps against linebackers at camps. You didn't really see as much of it in high school, especially because of the lower classification. There isn't really as much information and film about it. But the film does not lie when you look at the at the camps that he went to, and I think that they play very similar. They're very patient in the backfield, but once they decide to go, they hit the hole. They have good power, good acceleration, and can do anything that the offensive coordinator wants them to do. At number 18 on this list is Alabama inside linebacker Demouy Kennedy. Kennedy is the kind of player who his height and weight don't necessarily match the position that he plays. When you think of inside linebackers at the college level, the height you normally think about is around 6 feet tall. Demouy Kennedy, he's 6'3". That's obviously not to say that he can't play inside linebacker. In high school, he played inside linebacker and outside linebacker, but not that really matches up with what they will play at the college level. That being said, Kennedy is an absolute stud. I think he could play inside linebacker or outside linebacker. However, due to the amount of outside linebackers that Alabama has in this recruiting class alone, he will likely play inside linebacker. He clocked a 10.9 in the 100-meter dash and has just been seen to be a smart football player. He has lower body explosiveness, and he's just comfortable playing in space and making quick tackles. I could definitely see Kennedy being used as an inside linebacker because of his speed and his ability to tackle out in space. But the one thing that worries me about him is his ability to play back in coverage. For his freshman season, I really don't see him being used on a consistent basis. He may be more of a situational player that can be used for blitzes or third down and longs, but his ability to cover the pass is really what's going to make him or break him. He can either be a starting inside linebacker and potentially play at the next level, or he honestly could switch down to outside linebacker and just be used as a good blitzer. I mean, he's proven that he can get to the quarterback as an inside linebacker or outside linebacker, but him being able to play back in pass coverage is really what's going to make the majority of these defensive players great or just a good situational player. My player comparison for Kennedy is former Vanderbilt inside linebacker Zach Cunningham. Cunningham currently plays for the Houston Texans, but back in college, he was one of the most overlooked players. I'm pretty sure he had a game against the University of Georgia in which he had about 17 tackles, which is just unreal numbers. Kennedy can be seen doing the exact same thing. Like Zach Cunningham, Kennedy is 6'3" and just has great quickness and ability to tackle in space. If Kennedy can become a better player in pass coverage like Zach Cunningham is, then he could definitely be seen playing at the NFL level. At number 17 on the list is Georgia offensive tackle Tate Ratledge. Ratledge is 6'6", 322 pounds, and he's got a body that's already built for college football. Similar to Tank Bigsby, Ratledge's ranking, which is number 37 in 247 Sports Composite, it was definitely affected by the classification that he played in. Going to high school at Darlington and Rome, Georgia, he didn't compete against the best talent, but when he appeared at camps, his ranking really shot up. He's got reps against some great players such as Brian Breezy and Will Anderson, the Alabama defensive end or linebacker. But he's definitely improving in his times. In high school, he spent some time playing tight end, which kind of shows you his athleticism. In his reps, he can be seen having elite footwork balance and quickness. In his reps, there's some times that he just gets flat out beaten, and you can probably attribute that to just kind of inexperience against elite defenders. But from what I've heard from different scouts is this is a guy who wants to compete. He wants to play against the best. You can see him getting absolutely demolished by Brian Breezy in one rep. Goes back up against him in another rep and does really well against him. So this is a guy that if he continues to work hard, he's going to have a spot at the next level. Unfortunately for him, or fortunately for him, Georgia has some pretty good offensive line recruits, probably making it unlikely that he'll get significant playing time until his at least sophomore, junior year. But with Matt Luke there as an offensive line coach, no one really knows. There's a somewhat of a chance that he gets into the starting rotation this year, competing against players like Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon, but I really don't see him getting a spot until he's an upperclassman. My player comparison for him is a player who was high school recruit just 2 years ago, former Georgia offensive lineman and current Tennessee offensive lineman Cade Mays. Cade Mays is a 6'6" guy, 318 pounds, and you can see the same kind of balance with tenacity that Tate Ratledge has. Obviously, we look at Cade Mays, he's one of the top offensive linemen in the SEC right now. With that Tennessee offensive line, who's going to be very, very good this year. Tate Ratledge can definitely work his way up to that. I think if Tate Ratledge has played in a higher classification in high school, there's a very good chance that he could be a 5-star recruit like Mays. But we'll really have to see. If he works his way into the starting rotation, then I guess that'll just prove the college scouts wrong once again, that a player with a lower classification can still be an elite prospect. Coming in at number 16 and the highest rated 4-star on my list is outside linebacker Mekhail Sherman. Committed to the University of Georgia, Sherman is 6'3", 234 pounds. Sherman was a former 5-star outside linebacker who at one point I believe was ranked the number 8 recruit in all of America. Unfortunately for him, in his junior year, he tore his ACL, and from what I've heard from many scouts, he didn't really recover from it in his senior season. Obviously, he's had a lot more time, and hopefully he can get back to full strength. But before his ACL tear, this guy was an absolute beast. He has a verified 4.53 in the 40-yard dash, which is absolutely incredible for a linebacker. When I look at the majority of these recruits, they can be great recruits, they can be going to great schools, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a great player at those schools. Mekhail Sherman with Kirby Smart is a match made in heaven. Sherman doesn't necessarily possess an elite consistency to get to the quarterback, but looking at Kirby Smart's defensive players, that's not really what he wants. He wants a player that's going to set the outside and be a huge contributor in the run game. And Mekhail Sherman, out of every single linebacker in this class, is probably the best run stopper. Sherman shows a college-level readiness in his ability to cover running backs and tight ends, and from what I've heard in college scouts, he is a very smart player. He's pretty similar to Demoy Kennedy, but I believe that he has a better presence in the run game, and he just has a better pass coverage. He is pretty much Demoy Kennedy if he could cover running backs and tight ends very, very well. He has good hips. He's able to turn and run in coverage. And really, if he can show that he recovered from his ACL tear, I really don't see why he wouldn't be able to get significant reps in his freshman season. Mekhail Sherman is, because of his fit and the Georgia offense, is probably my second favorite Georgia recruit in this recruiting class, only behind Kelee Ringo. My comparison for a healthy Mekhail Sherman is former Georgia linebacker Roquan Smith. Now, the biggest difference between these two linebackers is that Mekhail Sherman has about 2 inches on him, maybe even 3 inches, depending on what thing you use. Roquan Smith started his career at Georgia as an outside linebacker and then switched to inside linebacker. Roquan ran a 4.51 in the 40-yard dash. Mekhail Sherman ran a 4.53. They both show elite diagnosis of the run game. They can cover in running backs and tight ends very well. This one might be my biggest stretch, mainly because of the difference in the height, but I really think that Mekhail Sherman is going to be a beast at the next level. Obviously, I really don't think that he will be a Roquan Smith caliber player, at least in his first 2 years, but if this is a guy that can recover from his injuries and works hard with Kirby Smart and the defensive staff there, this could be a very, very good pickup for the University of Georgia. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe or comment content that you would want to see on a future video. My next video will be covering numbers 11 through 15 and should be up as soon as possible.